didn't try it. I don't know. It's just it's not a bad idea. And the descendant policy is not going to go away, so they just have to change their frame busting code. So location clobbering. So this is very typical frame busting code. But so we had this, and top.location could be changed, or it could be sort of disabled. This would all be very bad, right? Like we could change all kind of things in the conditional, and maybe we can mess up the counteraction. But our browsers would never allow us to do that, right? That would never happen, right? Fortunately, that's not the case. In IE7, you can just redeclare the location variable in the top frame, and it actually renders a security warning when you try to change a local variable in another origin, because he just tries to go and change the variable that you defined in the top frame. In Safari, you can do window.defineSetter, and it actually renders top.location undefined. So anything that you try to do with the frame busting, it sort of explodes in a bunch of JavaScript errors. So you can actually use ask nicely. Any redirection by a subframe can be intercepted by a top frame and then canceled. All you have to do is ask. So you do a window.on before unload, and you turn a string that will actually be shown as a little prompt. So we'll say, do you really want to leave PayPal? Or how about, I got you to this game. It's a really cool game. Do you really want to leave my game now? Come on. This is a really nice game. And obviously, if people really wanted to go to that site, they would press cancel, and all frame busting attempts are they're gone. This would never work. Unfortunately, you don't have to ask nicely at all. In most browsers, you can actually just register an on before unload event and do several fetches to a 204 no content page, which will actually just clear out the entire redirection pipeline, and any sort of frame busting from the bottom context at the top context will be thrown out by this 204. 204, yeah. Oh, no. 204 is sort of it's a no-op in most browsers. If you type in a 204 URL, it will just sort of die. And that's what it does. It kills out the redirection pipeline, and you're sort of lost. I've talked to some browser vendors, and apparently there are some difficulties in fixing this. There are some sort of logical issues that I'm not going to go into right now. But so there are also the restricted zones, and this was first introduced in IE8 by the security restricted, which disable JavaScript and cookies in any framed page. So you can see how this is a bad thing. If we want to rely on JavaScript down in our bottom frame to get rid of the bottom to get up to the top context, and we disable JavaScript, then we're sort of lost. The bad thing about IE8 for an attacker's sake is that cookies are also disabled, so you couldn't really do any sort of session writing. That's sort of what you want to have a session to play with. Unfortunately, in Chrome, in the sandbox attribute, cookies are still there. Same goes for design mode in IE8 and Firefox. So the attackers is all happy again. And this was a nice idea. It was reflective access filters. It was introduced in IE8, and it's also in Chrome now. It's called XSS Auditor in Chrome. It tries to stop type 1 XSS, reflective XSS, and what it does, it looks at the URL parameters of your URL and sees if any of the script, anything that looks like a script that's in the URL parameters that's shown in the rendered page will be canceled out in the rendered page. So in IE8, this is done by putting in this hashtag in the script, inline script tag, and it will do this to every inline script. So this is obviously a problem for our frame busting code, right? So Eduardo Vela, who I actually saw on the speakers list, I think he's here. came up with this cool idea that you can actually just have your frame busting code in the URL and it would actually cancel out the URL, the frame busting code that you have in your page. So all the frame busting code is out of it doesn't work anymore. And in XSS Auditor, this is actually even more severe problem. In IE8, all the inline scripts will be canceled. In XSS Auditor, you can actually cancel specific script blocks. So you don't have to disable JavaScript over the entire page. You just find that particular frame busting code and you just take it out and throw it out. So this is sort of it's an issue. So is there any hope? Yes, there is hope, primarily in the shape of X-frames option, which was introduced in IE8. It's an ATP header sent on responses. It has two possible values, deny and same origin. If deny, it will not render in a frame context. If it's same origin, it would only render if the top context frame that's framing you is of the same origin. This is a pretty neat idea. It has good adoption by all browsers. It's coming in Firefox in 3.7. It has very poor adoption by sites, unfortunately. 4 out of the top 10,000 pages use X-frames option. We looked at our data, we can only find 3. It does have some limitations. It's a per page policy, so you couldn't do sort of a grandiose domain policy, say like this domain cannot be framed. So you have to do it for every page, which sort of, it's difficult. Some implementation details can become tricky. There's no whitelisting, so that what Walmart and New York Times were trying to do, they wanted to have some sort of whitelist where they allow certain pages to frame them. This is not possible. And also, there's also always a problem when you try to introduce new headers with proxies. Proxies like to strip out all kind of headers for no good reason. And this sort of out of your control if you're going through like something like a corporate proxy or like a school proxy. There's also content security policy that's sort of in beta for Firefox right now. It has some very nice usage. I think it's going to take a while for it to really gain some adoption, but it has some really nice sort of directives where you can specify framing directives for domains and subdomains, and you can do very nice things. I encourage you to look up the spec. It's a very cool idea, but still, it's in beta, and it's coming in Firefox 3.7. This is sort of the best for now approach. And I've given this talk a couple of times, and people sort of, in the beginning, people were like, so Gustav, tell me what the best, like how can I do this in JavaScript? And I'm like, no, you can't. I mean, use X-frames option. But this is the best idea that we can come up with. It's not pretty, and there have been lots of complaints about it. So what we do is we start off by rendering the entire page blank. And when we see that we are actually top, we make it visible again. If not, we know that we're not top, so we try to frame bust. Now, so any tags that we looked at that disables JavaScript or does funky stuff which tries to strip out this entire tag, we just render the entire page blank. Now lots of people say like, oh, well, you can't rely on JavaScript being there, and there's be all blank and everything will die. And I don't know. I think it's a fair assumption to think that JavaScript is enabled in most modern browsers if you're not using NoScript. And if JavaScript is disabled, you can still make this more fine-grained. You don't have to make HTML all blank. You can have some box that says, JavaScript is disabled or you're in a frame context, so I'm not going to frame you. Now, I know that people have problems with this, and this is sort of the best approach that I know of. I don't know of any other better ideas. Yeah. Target equal top. Inside no script. Perhaps let's talk about it offline. Yeah, there have been lots of proposals, and one that we actually proposed for a while was playing with visibility hidden to try to hide elements and try to show them and stuff. This is actually not good because when you do visibility hidden, you're still rendering all the objects of the page. You can still do framing leak attacks, scroll attacks, and there are several things that sort of get enabled. So use display none and display block, sort of the current idea. So I'm not very happy about proposing this, but people ask, so we tried to give them the best thing that we knew of. So just a little bit more. We know that these sites, among others, do frame busting, but how about these? Most sites on the internet now, or top 500, a majority of them, have some sort of mobile alternative. And the answer to this, do they do frame busting on their mobile sites? And the answer is no, they don't. The only page that does do it is Facebook, and actually they messed it up. So one of their mobile sites did get under attack and launched one of these like jacking attacks. The problem with this is that they don't do any user agent specific rendering, so you can render it in any desktop browser you'd like, and it's just there, and you can launch any sort of clickjacking attack on the framed mobile site. The perhaps even bigger problem is that they share sessions between their regular sites and their mobile sites. You're logged in at msn.com, you're also logged in at home.mobile.msn.com. So you have a user that's logged in with his Gmail account, you just redirect him to mobile.gmail, and you clickjack him there. Some pages do redirects, like New York Times and eSign articles do some redirecting, so you can actually not render mobile sites in the browser directly. So sort of the summary is all frame busting code that we could find was broken in several different ways across browsers. Defenses are on the way, but they're not widely adopted yet. Relying on the referrer header is difficult and can be tricky to get right. My suggestion is if JavaScript is disabled, then don't render the page and frame bust your mobile sites. That's all. Thank you. I'll take questions, if there are any. Yes?
If we step back for a moment, the problem is, the reason why people want to frame bust is because predictable URLs end up carrying powerful content. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
So, given that essentially until browsers update, it's not possible to protect against clickjacking attacks. Would an alternative solution be to, so anytime you have content that is powerful, essentially to make the URL that generates that page also be an unpredictable page? Or does that not address
Well, so you'd have to make every URL to any page be random?
You also have to make sure that you don't have a well-known credential lead to that place that depends on cookies as credentials.
Yeah, so I mean, you wouldn't want people not be able to go to twitter.com and get their session active, right?
Right.
Yeah, so the question was, can we, I guess, another type of defense is to make URLs to session-based data non-predictable as an alternative to clickjacking attacks. And I mean, I think, wouldn't that be very difficult if you